I am so pleased to introduce Representative Sharice Davids. She is the newly elected representative from Kansas's 3rd District within Kansas City. She is part of the wave. She is part of the wave. Come on up. She is part of the wave. It is wonderful to have you here. Just soak it in. Just soak it in. She is part of the wave that Speaker Pelosi spoke so eloquently about yesterday. Congresswoman Davids is the first Native American woman ever elected to Congress, a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin. She's also an openly gay member of Congress. During her campaign, she made healthcare one of her key issues, advocating for expanding Medicaid, letting Medicare negotiate drug prices, and supporting legislation that prevents price gouging of prescription drugs. Given the issues she's willing to take on, it may not surprise you that she's a former mixed martial artist and lawyer, and isn't afraid to stand up and fight for equity. She's a woman's health advocate and also is focusing on listening to and elevating the needs of her constituents. Let's welcome Representative Sharice Davids.
Good afternoon. Let's see. Okay. Sometimes it's like right here in front of my face, and then I realize I should have moved the mic. Okay, I made a bunch of notes because this panel was amazing ahead of me. I kind of wish we could just listen to that for another hour. Thank you for all the, just the honesty, the candor, the truth that you all were speaking. I just appreciate it. I might end up, well, first, hold on. If everyone could take out your phones, I'm going to do a poll. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what happened, but it sounded like maybe that was a thing. But I took so much out of this panel that I might try to weave it in. I have some prepared remarks, so if I mess it up, you'll know why. Well, first, thank you to Families USA, to Frederick for introducing me. I'm so excited to be here. Healthcare was the #1 issue that folks talked to me about on the campaign trail. And then I want to, Kansas? Who here is from Kansas? I know there's a few. And so I just want to, I know for sure some folks from the University of Kansas Medical Center, Wyandotte Community Health Council, Wyandotte County, folks from Alliance for a Healthy Kansas, the NBC Community Development Corporation, I know, and then folks from Sedgwick. I'm so happy I'm always excited when people get the chance to meet folks from Kansas, and then also would love for anyone who's never been there to please come visit us. Access to quality, affordable healthcare is certainly something that I know everyone in this room, I feel like I'd be preaching to the choir to tell you how important it is. But, on my campaign, there were so many people who were volunteering to help get me elected because, one, I recognize the fact that all of us have a right to quality, affordable health care, and two, you can clap for that if you want, and that really issues of making sure that folks have protections who have pre-existing conditions, that people who have not previously had access to health care, and I'm going to make sure to mention the mental and behavioral health care aspect of it too, because that is very, very important. I was so happy to be here for the First Lady's comments. And then I want to also acknowledge that it wasn't just the folks on my campaign team, although there were a lot. There's, one of my key volunteers fought breast cancer, won and didn't want to lose her health care, a woman who was working as hard every day as she would on a full-time job because her son needs to have access to health care because he has MS. I mean, there are so many people who worked really hard. I know there's been a lot of cussing. But people who know that it is not okay in the wealthiest country in the world to have people who are suffering and don't have access or are priced out of being able to afford health care. So I know that, you know, right now we're in the middle of, and hopefully literally in the next couple of hours, we'll see an end to the shutdown. I was trying to watch the news on the way over. But healthcare has been one of the biggest issues on people's minds throughout the entire midterm election cycle. And now that we're through that, it is time for us to start acting on us, those of us who are just elected, to start acting on those concerns that our constituents have. I'm really excited and proud to be part of this class, speaking of the work that we're going to get to. I'm sure all of you know that we are the most diverse freshman class that Congress has ever seen. Including the first Muslim women to serve, the first combat veteran, a Latina from Texas, the number of LGBT folks, and then also, I am so proud to be in this with Deb Haaland, the other Native American woman who was elected this year. And the importance of this is not, and actually this was touched on a little bit in the last panel, is it's not just the representation, but the reflectiveness of that. And what we've done in this last election cycle is that we have reset expectations about who runs for office, about who we expect to see running for office, because I can tell you, I've been meeting with a whole bunch of elementary school, middle school, high school kids who, if they don't see as many women running next time as they saw this time, they're gonna think something's wrong, because something has been wrong, and we're fixing it. We're resetting expectations about what kind of candidates we support. Who are we gonna go knock on doors for? Who are we gonna support with our dollars when we don't have the time to knock on doors? We have reset so many expectations in this election cycle, and it really wasn't just me. So one of the things that I heard was, this is personal, and it is, but it's not just personal for the folks who are running for office or who are running organizations. It's also personal for all the people who need us to be doing that and who are helping support us in getting us here. So one of the things that I realized very quickly during the campaign is that this is not about me. I'm so proud to be part of this Congress. I'm so proud to be one of the first 2 Native American women, to be an open and out member of the LGBT community, representing Kansas. But this isn't about me specifically or my story. But my story is not dissimilar to a lot of other people, which is how I know that it's not about me. I was raised by a single mom who served in the Army for 20 years. I graduated from Leavenworth High School. Yeah, we can clap for my mom. So my mom served in the Army for 20 years. I graduated from Leavenworth High School, which is how a Ho-Chunk, which is a tribe in Wisconsin, ends up in Kansas. And that's not an uncommon story. It's not uncommon to be raised by a single parent. It's not uncommon to be a first-generation college student, which I am. I know because we heard multiple other people earlier talking about being first-generation college students who are very successful. It's not uncommon to work the entire time you're in school. It's not uncommon to leave school with student loan debt. There are so many things that are so similar about my story to a lot of other people. The problem is those stories haven't been in Congress. Those experiences have not been reflected in the decision makers that we've been sending to Congress. And this year, we started to change that. So every opportunity, the thing that I came to realize as well is that so many of the opportunities that I've had have stemmed from, well, one is my mom working really hard. She worked so hard to raise my brothers and I. Also, she's a drill sergeant, so that kept me in line. But two is the fact that I had access to quality public education. And especially in Kansas, what we've seen over the last number of years, Sam Brownback, is really an attack on our public education system. And Kansas, not just in my election, but in Laura Kelly's election to be our governor instead of Chris Kobach, which I am really proud of. But also in so many of the state house races that were run in Kansas, folks came out and said, this is not the community that we want to be seen as. We support public education. We support candidates that want everyone to have access to affordable quality health care, that want people to be able to afford their prescriptions. We know that Kansas is so much more than what it's portrayed as. And I was really proud to be part of that. Being a first-generation college student coming from the Midwest, I was a little bit nervous when I went to Cornell for law school. And then, thanks. And then when I came out to DC as a White House fellow in the Obama administration, the thing that I saw, I'm getting off script, hopefully my team's not like, what are you doing? But the thing that I saw, which was something that got touched on earlier, was that there are so many people who are changing the world that have a story that is very similar, not just to mine, but that we all have to each other. And hearing the panel talk about what does it mean to be a human, and what is it like to really find power in your own voice. I found that when I went to Cornell, when I came out here to DC to work in the Obama administration. It wasn't that everyone around me was so much smarter than I was. It was that a lot of them had expectations for what their life was supposed to look like. What am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to be running for office. But no one ever said that about someone like me, but they will now. And being in rooms full of people who look so different than I do helped me learn the power of one voice. When I was working in the Department of Transportation, sitting in meetings with the secretary, and I saw that all it takes is one voice to change the conversation completely. One person asking, did you talk to anybody in rural communities about this? Did you talk to anybody in communities that have been closed off from opportunity because a highway plowed through? If the answer is no, then we're not doing our jobs correctly. And I think that the beauty of what we've seen in this last election cycle is that we now will have more people in the room who have experienced so many of the decisions being made on their behalf without their input. And that is the thing that this class brings that is so beautiful, is that we know that if you're leaving any of the voices out of the decision making, you are not doing the most you can for as many as possible. And that is what we're supposed to be doing as elected representatives. So I get asked a lot, and this is part of what I was hoping to talk about. I get asked a lot for some advice. You know, okay, you made it to Congress. What's some advice? A lot of times it's because I'm talking to younger, not that you all aren't in your prime, but I go to high schools a lot, and I like to talk to ele- elementary schools, like I was just doing this past weekend, and I always get asked, what kind of advice do you have? And I think my advice is true regardless of whether you're well into your career, your first career, your second career, or if you're in college, or if you're a young kid. The first piece of advice I always offer is to take naps. Which I think touches on self-care. The second piece of advice is that you get to define for yourself what success means. And I really feel like my life completely changed when I realized that. As soon as I stopped saying, what am I supposed to be doing? Because society tells us what we're supposed to be doing. And I started saying, what do I need to do? What am I compelled to do? What are the things that I feel like I need to be working on? And that completely shifted the way that I lived my life. Even though it took me 8 years to get my undergraduate degree, I knew that what I was doing because I wanted it, and it was part of what success meant to me. So it doesn't matter what my path looked like to get to where I was going. It only mattered that I was doing it the way that I wanted to do it. So the other piece is, the last thing I want to say has to do with a question you asked at the end, how to not burn out. For sure, this is just for my notes now. The first thing I would say, because going through this campaign was not the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And this is a huge piece, I think, of why I was able to make it. Because I knew that no matter what, I was doing the thing that it didn't matter if I failed or if I succeeded, meaning if I won or lost, it would be exactly what needed to happen for the betterment of society. I knew that in my core. So I followed the mission, I think is how you described it earlier. And the thing that I think is the most important to remember for people who are not used to seeing themselves in decision-making positions, who are not used to being part of the decision-making process, is that your voice absolutely belongs at the table. And I knew my voice absolutely belonged at the table, because the biggest argument against me running was people like you don't run for office. You can't raise money. No one in Kansas is going to vote for a person like you. And those are absolutely not true, because my voice is just as important as your voice or your voice or your voice. All of them should be included. And that is the piece that I think we all need to recognize, is we have so much strength in our individual voices. We have the opportunity to change the world through one voice. And I appreciate that all of you are already doing that. You're doing the work that you need to do. I know it from just even listening to two presentations here today. And I would love to continue down the path of progress for our country with you. I'm looking forward in the future to working with some of you on something. I don't even know what it'll be yet. But this is the beginning of our relationship. I have now shared personal stories with you. I've heard personal stories of others. We're connected now, and I'm looking forward to staying connected, and I'm looking forward to working with you all to help continue to change the world. Thank you.